I'm sorry for the informal introduction, you guys. I was hesitant on doing commentary on this article because it's difficult for several reasons. I feel like that our people are in a war that we don't even seem to acknowledge exists outside of our immediate peripheral vision. And something about our behavior when we respond to certain stimuli, such as trauma, I would say it's abnormal, it's contrived, it's almost manufactured. Understand that the way we react to mistreatment, we don't necessarily address it head on, but we instead protest. We tell our people to get out and vote. We say to pray about it. We complain on social media. We try to convince others of the plight we face, but to no avail. And yet here we are in this state of perpetual stagnation with little to no progress. And I have to ask you guys at this point, why do we even get upset? And I want to know because we get upset, we talk about it, and nothing changes. We hashtag, we say Black Lives Matter, but let me just say this. If Black people truly valued themselves and their people, we would have rebellious actions so incendiary that those who harm us would think twice before coming after us. But because of this incessant passivity and relentless docile nature, it's just more of the same. We reinforce the behavior of our oppressors indirectly by choosing to do nothing. We film our mistreatment, then within the social media realm, we post a video or picture. People emotionally respond. Black people get all riled up, and then, like the very predictable water cycle, we repeat. And the only thing that changes is the person, but the concept remains the same. But let me just go ahead and just get into this article because I definitely have more to say at the conclusion of this. So, it says here on this article by ABC News that 4 Minnesota police officers fired after death of George Floyd. Black man seen pinned down in video. I'm not going to play the video because it's really graphic and I don't want to show that because YouTube might strike my channel for inciting violence and it might go against their community guidelines. But it says here the Federal Bureau of Investigation will probe the death of a black man who died shortly after being apprehended by police in Minneapolis, Minnesota, after disturbing video emerged on social media showing a police officer with his knee on the man's neck as the man repeatedly yells out, "I can't breathe." And I don't know if you guys remember, but this actually strangely mirrors the Eric Garner case. Like the only difference is that this actually happened in Minnesota, whereas with the Eric Garner case, that actually took place in New York and it took place with the very corrupted NYPD. It's really strange how these all seem to kind of mirror each other. But it says here, "I can't breathe, please. The knee in my neck." The man identified as George Floyd said in a video showing a police officer pinning him to the ground, "I can't move, my neck, I'm through, I'm through." Then it goes on to say the Minneapolis Police Department announced Tuesday morning that the FBI will be a part of the investigation into the death. Minneapolis Police Chief Medaria Arradondo said Tuesday morning that the officers involved in the incident have been placed on paid leave and he pledged the department's full cooperation with any investigations. Later Tuesday, the mayor of Minneapolis tweeted that all 4 responding officers involved in the incident have been terminated. For the benefit of those who may not know the basis of my commentary or my views of this oppressive establishment that Black people are trapped in, I will say this once more. But why do we expect for a higher component of racial oppression to indict or bring about punishment to a lower conglomerate within the same organization? You guys have to understand that would be like the equivalent of Walmart investigating Sam's Club for alleged illegal practices of import and export with foreign countries. Of course, nothing's going to happen. Why do we expect something different to happen? And I can assure you this is unfortunately going to be another unfortunate lynching where the officers who took this man's life will only just be fired. They won't be charged. They are probably off vacation somewhere in the Virgin Islands, sipping mimosas, fine dining with the wealthy, and probably receiving pension and other benefits for their cold and callous actions because the homicidal actions of the dominant society are almost always rewarded when it's done to us. There isn't a second that passes by that these pilgrims work relentlessly to make sure your people remain in a state of interminable disenfranchisement. Now, I also want to say this. I went on Twitter and it's basically the same across the board. Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. And I see nothing but Black people saying, "Oh, I'm so tired. Being Black is so tiring and it's exhausting." And I'm just looking at us like, well, it's no wonder that these people feel as though they can keep doing this to us because we're not putting up much of a fight to defend our people against these attacks, or at least seek retribution or accountability. Let me tell you something. The people who oppress us, they don't get tired. They do this in their sleep and they have no contrition. They will do it and they are going to keep doing it until we take action and establish consequences for when the oppressors wrong us. And let me say this, y'all better get untired, and I mean quick, because I guarantee you, they get a drink of milk or whatever dairy cow product they consume and they get right back on the playing field. Meanwhile, black people run one drill and we're talking about we're tired. No, you are not prepared. We need to make it exhausting for them to be who they are. Do to them what they do to us. I mean, is that so difficult? I mean, because it's like, what are we so afraid of? And this artificial mentality that seems to manifest itself into our behavior almost leads me to believe that we somehow have been bred to be passive and in a permanent weakened stage. Like how species of animals go through centuries of domestication to no longer exhibit the patterns of behavior they once exuded. For example, animals without interruption from man normally display feral patterns of behavior, basically undisturbed. Mayor made a statement about how the officers were terminated, but that really isn't going to do anything. These officers can easily pick up, move, and apply for another job at another precinct, and the cycle starts all over again. And since black people lack power, we can't do anything to ensure that these men suffer permanently. So I wish we would stop the symbolic victories. This is nothing to celebrate at all. It is not a victory. Only if these men are convicted and receive a hefty penalty is when celebratory actions are appropriate. But trust me, these men aren't suffering any real consequences. Now, I won't read this article in its entirety because it is fairly lengthy, and I'll leave the link in the description box because I was able to skim the article and it wasn't anything that we haven't already heard. You know, investigation, telling of the story, etc., etc. But it does say here, being black in America should not be a death sentence. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey said at a news conference Tuesday morning for 5 minutes, we watched a white officer press his knee into a black man's neck. 5 minutes. When you hear someone calling for help, you're supposed to help. This officer failed in the most basic human sense. Frey called the incident awful and traumatic, saying it serves as a reminder of how far we have to go. In a statement of Facebook, Frey added that I believe what I saw and what I saw is wrong on every level. To our black community, to the family, I'm so sorry, he wrote. And if you guys could hear the sarcasm in my voice, then good, because that was on purpose. But this is where I will offer my final commentary because even this recessive gene mayor is annoying me with each passing word that I read on this article. And I really don't even know why these pilgrims apologize for their hostile and savage actions that their brethren commit against us because it doesn't seem genuine. I don't know if you guys noticed that. The apologies, they're very short. And if it is a long apology, it's not even really an apology. It's more of them just kind of talking around what they did without placing the blame on themselves for what they did. So it kind of lacks authenticity altogether. It's like, why even apologize? Especially because in the case of black people, we forgive, we react using our emotions, and we think everything is okay. And again, it's something that just kind of proves my point that our mentality is anomalous and it's strange because, again, I don't know any other races of people who would want to engage in relationships with their oppressors. They want the acceptance, validation, and approval of their oppressors, all while they hunt your people and make sure your neck stays under their boot. And a lot of you would probably say, Chris, you're being too radical or you're mean. Calling out what's right before my eyes is not cruel-hearted to me, nor is it radical, because it's just that our people have become so conditionalized that any truth we hear is like this abrasive, unpleasant sound that we just want to turn off. And it's sad, it's unfortunate, because our community is such in a compromised state that, let's just say, if a war were to be waged against us tomorrow, do you know how overwhelmed we would be and how easily the dominant society would secure victory over us? And it is startling and disappointing that subconsciously our people have this defeated mindset in which we seem to surrender even before we have a chance to fight. I say all this to say, why are we getting mad doing all of this if we're not going to do something different? So what? You're going to protest, and then what happens? You're going to hashtag, you're going to say, go out and vote, even though Joe is the one responsible for mass incarceration, but y'all want so desperately bad to get rid of Trump, etc., etc. You guys, those are my thoughts on this article. Again, I was filled with hesitancy and a little reluctance to talk about this, but I did want to honor the request of my subscriber that sent me this story, and I do thank him very much for sending me this story. And I want to thank you guys too for your continued support. It definitely means a lot to me that you guys continue to send me articles and stories that you want me to review. But in the meantime, just make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment your thoughts on this video and let me know what you think about all this. I want to close this out by saying rest in peace to George Floyd. It's really sad to see our people lose their lives in this manner and so commonly that we seem to almost become desensitized to this type of trauma. Black people are too precious and lovable, and it really hurts when we lose our own. And I hope his family is taking time to grieve and hold each other close during these times. I send my sincerest condolences to his family and really hope that they can find healing at some point.